This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pearse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
Hello, everyone. This is Stephen Pearse. This is Collecting Real Estate. I'm here with my co-host, Bill Hamill. Bill?
Thank you, Stephen. I look forward to flipping the script today and interviewing you on your first purchase.
Yeah, it's a great episode that we just recorded. I think there's a lot of good nuggets of information in there, especially for newer investors looking to get into their first couple of purchases.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the collecting real estate title from my career, and I'm anxious to see your career starting to collect real estate.
Thanks, Bill. I think this is a great start to that collection and a good episode. I hope you guys enjoy.
Good morning, Stephen.
Morning, Bill.
Today we are talking to Stephen Pearse about his most recent purchase. And let's just get right to it, Stephen. Tell us about your most recent purchase you just did.
Yeah, so the address is 8 Main Street, Rexford, New York. It was a week and a half ago, it'll be 2 weeks ago on Friday. It's a up and down duplex, a little bit of an older home. It was built in 1890. I like that it is in the school district that I went to, but it has lower taxes because it's in a different county. That's kind of a brief background on it.
Excellent. No, I was happy that you made this first purchase. It's the first time for anything is sometimes the most challenging. Stepping back just for a moment, can you discuss your real estate journey up till now?
Yeah, definitely. I'm fairly new in the real estate industry. I wasn't familiar with real estate investing or any of the terms and podcasts we're all so aware of until my master's in entrepreneurial studies course. That's where I was first introduced to the whole idea of no money down investing and that financial freedom that can provide. There were two different presenters that spoke to us, and both of them and their messages stayed with me as something that I would be interested in the future. But straight out of that program, I needed a job just to pay the bills. So it was kind of something I tucked away in the back of my mind until I saw your job listing in January of this year, 2021. And when I clicked on that, I decided to go head first into real estate investing in the real estate industry. So really since then, I've been looking for a property to make that first purchase because I moved back in with my parents during the pandemic, and that wasn't very fun as a 24-year-old. Even though they're great, it was time to get back on my own. So it's been almost 6 months of looking for the first property, and here we are.
Awesome. No, I'm very happy for you. And I know that after we met and shortly after, it started working with me, you had interest in, some other properties along the way and a few that you passed by. Do you regret not moving forward with those properties?
No, I don't regret walking away from any of those. I'm grateful for the expertise that you provided to tell me when to walk away. I'm trying to think back to the individual properties in mostly the Schenectady area of upstate New York, Capital District. And I think I learned something from each of the properties that we walked into. And you said, this basement's not good, or this one just has too many problems, or the layout of these apartments aren't good enough. One that comes to mind was the Ray Street property, which we walked away from not by choice. Our offer wasn't accepted. And at the time, that was kind of hard because you get a little emotional about it. You're sitting there thinking about what you're going to do with the property. And unfortunately, moving in, you start treating it more like a residential than a business, a commercial investment. And even though we didn't get that one, that was probably a good thing in the long run too. That one might have been a little bit more work than I could have handled at the time, especially because we submitted a 203K offer on that one, which would have put a lot of extra stress on those first few months. So I think it all worked out pretty well in the end.
No, I agree. That was a nice property, and you just never know what deal flow is going to come across as you're looking. So, that one was in that location that certainly fit your criteria, but yeah, it would have been a much heavier lift than what you're dealing with on 8 Main Street.
It would have been a heavier
Um,
lift. It was a higher purchase price. It needed more work. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have the lower taxes of Saratoga County. So when you put all of that together, I think it worked out.
No, I agree. It's so telling on that short journey from looking at properties. Just by doing this so long, watching how anxious you were from the first couple that we looked at, and then seeing the Ray Street property, even though you didn't get your offer accepted. In my mind, it was like, okay, we're getting close. Once you experience, something like Ray Street, it tells me it's like, okay, we're getting closer. It's just a matter of time and patience that next one comes along. And 8 Main Street comes along probably within 30 days from that Ray Street.
And I definitely learned something from each of those properties. And that process of submitting the offer on Ray Street was another learning experience.
Absolutely. Even when you don't get offers accepted, just going through that exercise, there's a lot of value to that. It's still educating you and warming you up for, future deals.
Yep. And my favorite part of the industry is probably the fact that there's new inventory every single day.
Yeah.
It's so unique to the real estate world that you sign on your computer every morning and you don't know what to expect.
That was the fun part over the years, where when I depended so much on the multiple listing service, and becoming a licensed broker. And when you're so anxious to build your portfolio, opening up that multiple listing service every day, it was like, okay, what's in store for me today? Hopefully there's a Christmas gift waiting. So that build up is always fun. And then when they hit the market, and that address and that price point catches your eye, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I'm addicted.
Awesome. No, it's great to hear. So, getting back to 8 Main Street, what is your plan there?
So the property needs a bit of work. I think the most prevalent concern is a few minor electrical issues that were outlined in the inspection. It's nothing major and nothing that I fully understand myself or that I want to try and tackle myself, but just a couple outlets that aren't covered and a couple fried outlets. So I think that is the first thing to work on, trying to set up an appointment with an electrician as soon as possible. Beyond that, it's fixing up an old home. The windows need to be replaced. The kitchen needs to be replaced. I want to do it in the most fiscally responsible way possible while also having it look good. So I'm kind of teetering back and forth with, maybe I can keep these cabinets and just replace the countertops. But then if I do that, how am I going to make it work when I want to put extra cabinets in over here and they wouldn't match? So I was trying to learn that myself. Another thing, there's a lot of red, and I think that helped me secure this one without as much competition as some of the other properties we mentioned. The front porch, back porch are both painted red. My kitchen's painted red, and that's all on a brick house. So there's just way too much red right now. So that is going to be one of the first things to change as well. And hopefully that one I can do on my own. So paint, kitchen, windows. Luckily, I have a great long-term tenant on the first floor. So they can stay down there and I don't have to worry about redoing two apartments at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting how many ways there is to skin a cat, so to speak, when you're analyzing what you want to do to improve your property. Specifically, when you're going to own or occupy it, being your first investment, you're left saying, okay, this is my first property, my first investment. You want to run it as a business, but at the same time, you're going to live there. You want to make it nice for yourself. So, what makes sense as far as those value add items? So, you want to make it nice for yourself, but at the same time, conscious about overbuilding, for that property.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's an investment. But like you said, I'm living there. So there are a couple of different factors than if it was something that I was just investing in. And when I'm looking at the property before actually closing on it, those couple months of being under contract, it was almost like being in fantasy land of I want to redo the attic, I want to put in granite countertops, and I want to put tile in everywhere, tile bathroom, tile shower, and put a fireplace over here and shelves over here because you're just looking at the pictures and you're trying to think this would look good. And then I move in. It's like, nah, I don't need to do all that. This works on its own. This fridge isn't stainless, but it keeps my food cold. So I don't think I need to spend money to change that yet.
It's funny, those types of decisions, they start to sway, a lot of times when you start putting your budget together and you start seeing what things cost, and then the decision making process becomes a little bit easier as you're spending your money. So it's also very interesting, because when you're first buying a property, it goes with the territory with all of us. You look at it once or twice, maybe before you put in an offer, and you go through the inspection processes. So, by the time you buy it, you've only seen it like 4 times, 5 times usually. And there's so much value in the repetitions of seeing the property because you learn more about that property each time you go there, which can certainly change your plan. So one thing that you just pointed out that I really didn't even put into the scenario was the red. We're more focusing on the building, making sure it's a sound investment, taking care of the real important parts of improving the property, but you're getting to the point where it's more granular on colors.
Yeah, I like the design aspect of real estate, interior and exterior. In this place, it's funny. It's got the red porch and a green roof and green, I don't even know what you call it. I guess around the window. So it's black shutters, but it's green trim around the windows. So it's just a lot of green and red, and it's funny to pull up to it and look at it. And I think it could look a lot better with some new colors out there and in
Yeah,
the inside.
and paint never it's just so amazing, even after being in the business for so many years. You take paint for granted, where it is so transformative,
Mhm.
where usually it's the interior of any space where you walk in and you're like, geez, after it's painted, it just makes such a difference, where you're going to be doing it on that red, which is right now has been the color scheme of that property for so many years. So when you take care of turning that red into a different color scheme, it's literally going to transform the look of that property.
That's what I'm hoping. And none of the other properties on the street had that same color scheme. So it's definitely an eyesore on the street
No,
the way it is
absolutely.
right
No,
now.
no, I'm anxious to see that new look when you take care of that. Tell us about your experience getting financing for this property.
Yeah, the financing experience couldn't have gone any better. I am still surprised how well it went from hearing stories about just delays and all the little red tape issues that come up in real estate. I couldn't have had a better experience with Homestead Funding in upstate New York. I think they also service the Florida markets. My lender was Peter Toll, and he did a tremendous job. I did know him previously, and we closed in, what was it, a month?
Yeah, it was quick. It was very quick. I was as equally impressed. Me and Peter went back and forth briefly after it closed because they do a fantastic job of communicating with the brokers along the way, so all the parties to the contract know what's going along or know what's going on throughout the process. Right to the point after the transaction. They follow up and thank everybody for how the transaction went and for inviting him to be part of the process. So I had to respond back to Peter on how impressed I was through this, because my experience over the last year, doing a lot of residential deals where it was delay, delay, delay. Yes, we were going through a pandemic, but that excuse was getting old. I don't think that is an excuse Homestead uses. They don't need excuses. They just deliver.
Yeah, I can't say it too many times how well they did. This was a 1 month close in a pandemic during a red hot market with an FHA offer. It sounds like that doesn't happen often.
No, I agree. That's an added challenge to financing when you add that FHA aspect to your financing. Normally, that's a red flag to all of us, saying, "Uh-oh, there's another month or two with the process just by adding the FHA component."
Yeah, and there's almost daily communication, and they also suggested an attorney who did a great job. So overall, Homestead Funding gets an A+ from me.
No, absolutely. It just went as smoothly as it possibly could, and then closed in a timely manner, which all the parties were very anxious to get this done.
Something else I want to add, Peter did suggest a seller's concession, which is something that I hadn't thought of ahead of time, and that really did help drive down the amount I had to put down at the closing table. And so I'm thankful for that because it did help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes such a difference. Whether it be, your agent helping you out, or whether it be the mortgage person assisting you through a process, whether it be your insurance agent assisting in the insurance aspect. It really makes a difference when you have experienced people, that are able to handle things properly and to give you certain advice that's going to lead you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
What challenges did you have throughout this process?
I think the biggest one is not having any construction background and being new to the industry. I've mentioned before in this podcast, not having construction background and seeing some of those projects as a little bit overwhelming, even with the resources of YouTube and everything we have available today. Walking through a building, I see something doesn't look good, but I don't know what it takes to fix it. I don't know the costs involved and the amount of time and labor that I have to go into it. So that seems to be the biggest challenge so far.
Yeah, I agree. Based on what you've told me, just not having that construction background certainly is a challenge when you're staring at a construction project. So yeah, I'm anxious to work through that process with you, just to help steer you in the right direction, depending on what your vision is there. I know that you've talked to some people in the business that you're considering hiring to help you with the job. What did you learn there?
That has also been kind of a rough process. I spoke with one contractor uh, right after I closed, the day after. He did a walkthrough of the property, and he's a really nice guy, and he was helpful because he walked through the property for about an hour and a half, and he showed me a lot of things that I hadn't noticed before. But the rates that he was quoting me, I couldn't believe. He was saying 2,000 a day just in labor costs. for his 4-man crew, including himself. And so when I heard that, it sounded too too high of a price to me. 10,000 a week just in labor costs. And I couldn't wait to go to the office and tell you that because I wanted to see your reaction and what you thought about it because it just didn't sound right to me. I'm a guy that my last apartment I moved into in Tampa, I had a buddy come over and hang the TV. So that just gives you an idea of what my construction background and knowledge is. But I'm also not paying $2,000 a day to have someone redo a kitchen. Doesn't make sense.
No, I don't blame you. So, educating yourself through this process, in real life with a real life project is going to be, very valuable for you, dealing with different contractors and, it's very similar to identifying the house that you're going to be purchasing. After you talk to a few contractors and one's going to come along that, you'll click with and they're more reasonable at that point, just like when you're buying the property, it's like, all right, I think I found the right contractor, which is very important, throughout this process. When you explain $2,000 a day, and do the math, if you were to hire that type of person and do the work that you're looking to do, your construction budget will make this purchase, upside down.
Yeah, the numbers just don't work. Hopefully, I do meet that contractor and then it all works out. I'm anxious to learn myself. I want to do a lot of it myself because I plan on being in real estate long term, but I don't want to learn on my own building. I don't want to do that C job, that C minus repair work, and have it be something that I see every time I walk in the apartment and go, oh, I should have hired someone to do that. So I'm trying to weigh the options of what can I do myself and learn while I do it. What can I hire someone to do? And maybe there's a middle ground of I hire them and they do a lot of it, but I also watch them and learn from them.
Yeah, that middle ground is going to be key, not only on this property, but on your next property and the one after that. As you develop some skills in this business, then you're able to tell yourself on how much money you're able to save. So it brings back memories for me when I was able to do all this work myself, but then took it too far for so many years where I spent so much time saving money doing the work, but unfortunately it takes you away from the grand plan of building that portfolio.
Yeah, so you want to learn how to do it, but you don't want to spend all your time doing it. And it's almost like do it until you learn how to do it and then stop doing it, which kind of sounds like it doesn't make sense because once you learn, you stop doing it. But I think that's the way to handle it for the long term.
Yeah, and it's challenging when that time is as you're working on real investments in real time, making these decisions as you're, weighing out that next purchase and seeing what your resources are. It certainly is, an art to this whole process. So, no, I'm anxious to see how that goes, and I'm anxious to help you where you may need some assistance with that based on me making, you know, uh, endless mistakes through that process, which, were valuable learning experiences, but it was taking way too far as far as my experiences. So hopefully, some of my mistakes, you'll be able to learn from. What are your goals going further building your portfolio?
Yeah, it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about after closing on this one. So the house across the street and next door were both just listed for sale. And I like the street a lot for the reasons I already spoke of. And it's something that I would like to have a little cluster of properties. The two of us saw the one across the street and you didn't like it for a number of reasons that you can, I don't know if you want to touch on those. I think your words were let it rot. Um, and I agree with all of your points, but the numbers do work and it would cash flow. And I look at it every day across the street. So that's a difficult decision that I need to make in the near future. Next door seems to be a much better constructed building. It's currently a single family, but I think it could be easily converted to a two family, just putting a door and maybe a little drywall, and that shouldn't be a hard process. So I think purchasing one of those two properties would be a good next step and have something that is manageable in one small cluster. I would like to keep investing in this area of upstate New York. I agree with your opinion on investing in townships. So I've been looking at staying in Rexford. I like the Burnt Hills area, Clifton Park, Half Moon, that area as well. The other thing that's currently on my radar is I would like to split time between upstate New York and Tampa, Florida down the road. So I kind of have mapped out a year from this October, so October 2022, as a time to go back to Tampa for an investment property, and then hopefully split time between this area and that area at that point. I love it up here from May to October, but once we get into those winter months, it's not for me. So I kind of made an outrageous goal of acquiring 10 doors this year. And that was before I had any real estate experience. I think that was after our first or second interview. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Let's make a goal, because I heard that on a podcast, and let's do 10 doors. And I don't think that's going to be realistic for 2021, but I like having that there as something to strive towards. I think having six or somewhere around there would really be a good first year.
Well, you know how it goes. If you are hitting your goals, some people will say that your goals weren't high enough. So
Mm-hmm.
no, I appreciate those 10 units, and you never know. A 10 unit could come along that you're able to identify and dig into your toolbox of resources and make it happen. So I look forward to that. What do
The problem is if that does happen, it's shit. What do I do next? I have to go 10x. Am I putting 100 on for next year? So that's
Wow,
fun to think ahead.
that's what it's all about. It's a lot of it is dreaming, but when you dream with a plan, that you can make those dreams come true. What how many units do you think that you might want to get to in 5 years?
Well, if you do the math on 10xing, no. I think it's all dependent on what kind of units and where. It's a good question, and I should have an answer prepared for that, and I don't. My long-term goal is to have short-term rentals in areas around the country that I want to be able to go from one property to the other, and that's really long-term, like after a family, really down the road. So how do I work to that point now? In 5 years, maybe 100, because I'd be around 30 years old.
Awesome. No, that's a great goal. That's a great goal. So, are you convinced that real estate investing is your long-term plan? For somebody, it was who is interested in investing in large multi-family properties, and you responded so positively to that, and here we are today. So are you interested in the really large multi-family game?
Yeah, that's the long-term goal. Not 5 years. I don't see myself syndicating my own. Maybe in 5 years. It just seems like it's such a big thing to tackle right now after just closing on a two family. But you hear everyone say that it's the same kind of analyzing numbers, just the numbers have a couple of zeros at the end. So maybe it would be a big jump to do that in the near future, but long term, there's no other option, right? If you're doing this in the long haul, you're going to keep progressing, keep leveling up, and you got to get to that point eventually. And I think syndicating is the answer to scaling long term. So yeah, I would love to. I like seeing the new apartment buildings going up, those bigger, almost communities. They're they're much more of a business than a property, and I really like that part of it.
So that remains, to finish up this interview, my challenge going forward, based on that answer, seeing that, you think 5 years down the road that may not be realistic for you. I disagree 100%. So my challenge is going to be to get you to set your mindset, eliminate those limiting beliefs, because I'm very confident that within 5 years, you're going to be a major impact in this business where, you'll be able to analyze and potentially purchase, any type of assets that you choose to do.
I appreciate that, but I guess it comes down to what do you consider big? In 5 years, I would like to have, maybe a couple 20 units, maybe a 30 unit. There's that whole other level of the 100, 200 unit apartment communities, and that's definitely another level, but that's where it gets fun.
Awesome. We're already starting to, move the goalposts a little bit just on the end of this conversation. So
Yeah.
that's my goal, is for you to continue to move those goalposts and get the confidence as you continue to educate yourself, getting more and more comfortable, to realize that, you'll be able to accumulate whatever you choose to, within a reasonable period of time, instead of thinking that 5 years is unrealistic, or any type of time frame like that. But yeah, this was great interview, Stephen. I love to hear that this is just the beginning. This is to the beginning of your journey, and I'm anxious to work with you for the next many years to see where it brings you.
I am too, and it's fun being on the other side of the interview for once.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So no, it was fun. Thanks for doing this, and till next time.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Stephen.